Hi, this is the first video that I'm attempting to do with a mic that I got secondhand from a pawn shop and my laptop that's like 20 years old. And I'm doing it as a live. I don't have any software, so I'm just doing it as a live stream video that I'm then just going to make into a video that I post. Feeling a little scattered. I need to turn off my phone. And trying to get the lighting right. It feels very weird and awkward. I wanted to see if I can sit with you at the start of this video and real time feel into my body this feeling of being scattered. Trying to get this right. And see how that might move in my body. This is kind of part of my removing any negative story or shame from whatever, having this not be perfect. So I'm going to see what happens and possibly maybe describe what I'm feeling. We'll see how it goes. So right now, in anticipation of this, I'm feeling a tingling in my left hip. Okay, I'm going to close down and see what else I feel as I'm settling in from being scattered. Feel tension in my throat and the back of my neck. I feel some tingling on the right side of my face. And now at my temple and moving up to my head. And choosing not to talk to my aunt at the moment. Feeling the thought arising of wanting to just dissipate this feeling of scatteredness and reminding myself that that's just a thought. My attention has moved to from my right to my left temple. What has left my hip? I'm breathing a little easier now. My hip tingling is back in my left hip. My tension left, and I am now feeling more neutral sensations of the minor stretch in my legs as I'm sitting crisscross in my office chair. And now I feel more free to feel the expansion in my breath. Sometimes when I allow myself to do this for long enough, and as I open my eyes, my thighs are tingling. The tingling sensations are interesting. They register as a feeling of release. Just having done that, I feel a little lighter right now, less scared of messing up this video, and more alive, more present. It's been interesting to play with. When I do this kind of exercise, to notice how I feel. So in this case, it was feeling scattered. Then apply this practice and say, okay, I don't feel like allowing for these sensations, this kind of story to take over of feeling scattered and how, the negativity and whatever, the shame, the judgment. So I'm going to immediately pop into, where is that in my body? And then if I have this kind of time to sit with it and let sensations arise and move and fade in my body. It's been interesting to when finding something in my body, first it comes with a label and a location, like my hip, that has a word associated with it, hip. And the word, a tingling sensation. And sometimes that word is pain or tension. And then there's the feeling. It's been interesting to be able to sit with it long enough to strip away the word and the concept and the name, and then to strip away naming the location. So it's been interesting. For example, last night I couldn't sleep and I got a little anxious because I need sleep to function. So instead of feeling anxious, I said, okay, where is that in the body? So I laid there and allowed for tension to move kind of up and down throughout my body. Sometimes it was in my head, my neck, sometimes in my stomach, sometimes in my legs. And it was interesting to give space, and it was in the dark, and I had my eyes closed. to still have the sensations in my body, but not to have to identify them in this visualized body graph of like, okay, this feeling is here and that feeling is there. It's like, what if I just feel those things in combination without having to separate them as, you know, a discrete number of feelings in different parts of my body? What if it's just the feeling that, if I use words to describe it, happens to be in my hip and in my head at the same time? So that's been interesting, to be in my body, but not to identify with it as this is like mine. I guess that's another part of it, is um, just feeling it and not naming it, but leaning into how it feels. And then another part of it is removing the I from the feeling and just being with the sensation. Um, it's fun when sometimes when I'm listening to something that Angela DeLulo is saying um, on a podcast um, with him and with other podcasts too that I've tapped into. Um, I try to include those in the description, by the way, in case you're curious what I'm referring to. When there's a reminder of that this is um, that my sensations can be reframed, I guess, as sensations of a greater consciousness, and that it's okay to not grab onto them and say, "Oh, I'm in pain," and it can release this idea of like, "I'm not safe," um, and phase more into um, this is a feeling, and things become more okay. It helps, especially when it comes to anxiety, because for me, anxiety is the most personal, and it triggers those feelings of shame and things not being okay and me needing to do something so that things are okay. It helps to kind of apply that way of thinking about it, of like, this is an experience of anxiety. To bring it more down to earth, the words that are coming up are uh, that this is a normal feeling and I'm not alone in feeling this. And there is not an objective, there's no one here standing and saying, this is your fault and you have to change something and you have to do something right now. That's all me. So it's okay to notice that and take a breath and remove those voices and remove that pressure. And then I can remember to identify the anxiety in my body. It's like, oh, there's tension in my neck. Oh, there it's creeping up to my head and my temples. Let's feel into this. Do I have 5 minutes to spare for sensation? Let's do 5 minutes. Let's do 5 breaths. Let's do 30 seconds, whatever. And actually, the other day, set a timer for 5 minutes. I was like, sure way I can spare 5 minutes in this moment. And then after feeling into it, It's like, okay, now, well, it allows me to kind of sober up about it. And either it really makes me feel much lighter and much more functional, and I can just go out and into, get back to work and just, you know, do it and get it done. Make a list and prioritize and do all the things that I do for my little office job. Or if it's not perfectly dissipated and I'm still feeling, I'm still feeling not perfectly light after taking those 5 breaths or 5 minutes, I can still acknowledge, like, okay, I took that pause. So I'm not completely in this loop of tension. Let's see if we can make some choices. And at least I know that they're going to be better choices than they would have been had I not acknowledged that I'm like under the influence of anxiety. What drove me to want to do this video is just that I want to share with you that it's interesting to notice that my tolerance for allowing thoughts and emotions and even pain and sensations to take over, my tolerance is going down the way a teacher's tolerance might go down for students interrupting her, kind of a thing, where I used to be a teacher, so that's my near and dear to me. It's nice to notice that when I feel something that was not intentionally, something that's intrusive, I guess, like anxiety, or feeling scattered, or pain, or being overwhelmed, or annoyed. More and more, it's becoming a knee-jerk reaction of like, oh, I refuse to let this take over. Where is that in my body? Take a breath. That's just a story. Oh, watch the thoughts coming in of, oh, I don't have time for this. It's like, all right, you have time for one breath. Or whatever thoughts come in associated with it. And noticing them and saying, okay, that's a thought. Got it. Oh, and seeing how they are not taking over the narrative of what's going on. I feel lighter just talking about it right now as I feel into that practice. And that's what sharing that is what drove me to want to make this video. And I want to see if it's worth it to share any anecdotes. Because there's stuff that I'll come up with. Be like, oh, I should make a video about that. But sometimes it's okay to just live life. And then, so I want to be measured about not doing too much of what I've come to call like show and tell. Of like, or something that sometimes I'll call it like, look, mom. Just like, okay, this is another thing that I did. And then because this is happening throughout the day with different sensations. But yeah, just to put a summary on it, it's been cool to notice that I can do this with anxiety, and a couple of times I've done it with pain, where I had that time where I could feel into the pain, notice it in my body, and I'm relaxing as I'm flashing back to this feeling. Notice that. So when I focused in on the pain and not, instead of tensing away from feeling and being like, oh, I don't want to feel this, being like, let's feel this, I noticed that my muscles had the, it's a funny way to put it, like they had the presence of mind to relax. And I saw that that was more than half the pain right there, was the tension of the muscles around the area where the pain was coming or seemed to be coming from. And also the tension of all of my muscles, like my back and my neck. Um, so then um, being present with that sensation made it bearable. And then I could say, okay, the core of this sensation. So I'm thinking right now of a night that I had heartburn, which is rare for me, but this happened like a week ago, where I could just focus and see that, okay, there's a burning sensation there, and that is completely bearable, but I have to keep focus on it. And a couple of times my focus would veer away because I was tired. It was the middle of the night. Um, and when my intentional focus loosened up, the muscle tension came back because the body was like, okay, if you're not telling me that this is okay, we're going to act like it's not okay because that's how we deal with pain. And there was a clamp down again. And I was like, wait, everybody. Like, it's like the teacher left the classroom for a second, had to get back in and be like, no, everything's fine. And like, got the muscles to relax again. And it happens faster the more that I practice it. And just had to stay with that pain until, I mean, I don't know how long it was because I made it a point not to look at the clock. But after a while, it dissipated and my stomach relaxed. And I was like, okay, can we go to sleep? It's like a team project. It's been very useful listening to, I guess, different kinds of, and I'll put in the description the podcasts that I've listened to. So Angelo DeLillo himself is a doctor, and then another podcast that I've gotten into, or YouTube channel, whatever, is ZDog MD, which is such a funny name, but he's a doctor too who has he'll have guests on sometimes talking about how the body behaves in different situations. So it's been really interesting. Where was I going with this? Some of the guests that have been on these podcasts have talked about, they'll mention things like how to, that feel into your like emotion body or to your pain body, and how to work with the different parts of what make up this experience. One of the guests that Angelo had on his show was, I might be combining information from two guests, but he had an autistic guest on his show, and I found out that I'm autistic. So that helped me. And either she or another guest were talking about how the mind, you can actually split the mind and have it like talk to itself, thinking that it's two different people, and how there are different parts of the mind. Yeah, I'm definitely thinking of different guests. Anyway, he's had guests on his show who talk about how there are actually different like personalities that, um, and then in multiple places I've heard of like the more whatever program you run, whichever personality is running the show, whoever gets the most practice, that's who gets better and better at running the show. So if you have a habit of anxiety and a habit of your to-do list person running the show, that's going to be the kind of person that you become. But there are other things that are functioning within you. I also have ADD. So if you haven't noticed, I'm totally running away with this part of this conversation. But it's been interesting to notice how I can work with all the parts of this: my muscles, my mind, my thoughts, sensations in my body, and the different modes that I have. And then there's also like the internal family systems thing of like my younger selves, like who's being triggered in this moment. Like if I notice that my pride is being hurt, it's like me in my 20s being like or if I'm coming up with safety issues or shame issues, like that's my like teenage self or my youngest self being like so to it's been interesting. I feel really lucky to be alive in this time in history, I guess, where talking about these things has it's been more and more destigmatized, more and more um, mainstream. So it's very cool to feel not crazy saying this stuff, um, because medical professionals have said this stuff, and friends of mine have said this stuff. Um, it's been cool to work with the different parts of myself to unpack what's going on and not buy into narratives that are not useful. Um, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what I can do with moving through things faster and having more kind of airtime for spontaneous action coming from a place of um, what I'm thinking right now is influenced by the uh, there's an authenticity playlist on the So Awake channel, which is another thing, another channel that I'm into. Um, and sometimes I'll play that on a loop. So some of those aspects are like practicing courage and going on intuition of like, what are we doing? There's not even a question, there's just action. So I'm really looking forward to doing that more and unpacking all of this thought based stuff faster. Um, and eventually heading toward that spontaneous action being more and more driven by giving. But for now, I'll settle for play and just being here. It's a lot. Wow, I just did a huge ADD jump around. Um, I'm looking forward to being better at stillness also. Yeah, I feel like I've just wrapped myself into a little web of thoughts about all this stuff. Um, I'm feeling like unpacking that just live, kind of the way I did, I think, in the beginning of this video, because now I'm feeling all wrapped up in all this stuff. So I'm going to unpack that and see where it is in my body and chill and sign off, maybe. Let's see what happens. Okay. So, feeling the stories to unpack, feeling touch embarrassed, but it's fine. Um, Feeling something that just settled into my hips and lower back. And something's showing up in my head between my temples, some tension. Slight constriction in breathing. Now clearing out, noticing more sensations like the sounds outside my window. Like the cars and the fan in the laptop that's running. Noticing the thought of my aunt's phone call that I rejected and allowing for that thought and not allowing it to cause anxiety. Oh, it's turned into a feeling in my head, a little bit of tension in my forehead, with more spaciousness in my torso. Noticing the thought of wanting to drain the tension from my head down through my body, but acknowledging it as a thought and choosing not to take any actions, but just to feel the tension. See the tension kind of dissipate from my face and still be a little bit on the right side of my head. And it seems to have appeared in my stomach and in my hips. But now feeling both in my head and in my hips, I just feel like a solidness. And in my head, I feel tension dissipating the way a cloud thins out as wind blows through it. Now just feeling a tingling in my cheeks and in my jaw and on the back of my head. Notice down my neck and in my cheeks, but relaxing in my back while still hearing the sounds outside. Noticing the thought of the sounds outside are, they sound like um, those fast bikes that sometimes around here at night they'll race them and people get mad. And I'm allowing for that thought and remembering that I'm not mad about it. And it's fine. Now engaging and feeling the combination of everything in my body without necessarily having to name where it is. It feels like from my temples to random spots in my torso, just haze. Oh, a more acute pain just appeared in my lower back. Noticing that I don't have to ask why or where it came from. Now I feel more heavy in my head as though I could definitely go to sleep. I'm going to take that as a sign that I can round it out for now. Thanks for letting me feel my body on camera. I feel a little more settled after having done that. And I feel like I know exactly what I'm going to do after I turn off this video. I think I might text my aunt good night and go to bed. My head is definitely leading me in that direction. I think it's okay to follow that. Thank you.